Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a universe that just completely rejects the standard rules of fantasy.
It really does.
Our mission is to unpack the DNA of the Grim Shadows universe, the GSU, created by R.C. Rucker. And we're starting right at the beginning with the book Starfall or Shadowworn.
And look, this is not just fantasy with a dark coat of paint. Rucker built this world to, philosophically reject that classic bright, shiny hero story. He's not interested in saviors.
No, he wants survivors.
Exactly.
He uses this phrase, aesthetic darkness, which I just find so fascinating, is this idea of finding beauty, or at least a really compelling richness, in things we'd normally call dark or mysterious.
It's not about shock value at all. It's foundational. And that whole aesthetic, it shapes the moral code of the entire universe, which is all about consequences, unavoidable ones.
Right.
The author is so specific about this. He says the conflict is not heroes versus villains. It's, and this is a direct quote, killers versus villains.
Wow. So it's a spectrum of darkness.
Yeah, and the only question is, which shade of dark do you need to stop something even worse?
That just frames the stakes perfectly. And to get how he created a world that's so, bleak but also beautiful, we have to look at Rucker's own roots. This isn't just an academic idea for him.
Oh, no, it's deeply personal. His background shows this lifelong pull towards dark stories, books, movies, music, right from when he was a kid.
And it wasn't just about being edgy. He found a real expressive outlet there.
He did, and we even get these, specific places that shaped him. He talks about the New York City goth industrial club scene.
Yeah, places like the bank and the Batcave.
And he makes a point of saying he was often one of the only black kids there. So that adds this whole other layer, right? Finding your place in a subculture that's all about this high contrast, dark aesthetic.
You can see how that would inform the world he built.
Yeah.
And then you look at his literary inspirations, and it's so clear he was never going to write some Happy Quest story.
Not a chance. He was drawn to characters who were already, morally gray, already carrying some serious baggage. He gives huge credit to Carl Edward Wagner's Cain,
Who he calls the greatest fantasy character ever created.
Yeah, and Cain is the blueprint for that ambiguous anti-hero, trapped by his own choices.
And then there's Elric by Michael Moorcock, which is basically the template for the tragic hero who's powered by some soul-sucking sword.
It sounds a little like a preview of Starfaller, doesn't it?
It really does. And all of this connects back to his core belief about what makes a character authentic, which brings us to this philosophy he has, the trust in scars.
This is so central to everything.
Yeah.
He says, flat out, that he doesn't trust people who've just sailed through life without any challenges.
That's a bold thing for a creator to say.
It is. He sees a lack of struggle as a lack of depth. He loves scars because they're proof. They show who can take a beating from life and get back up.
So in the GSU, the scars, physical or, mental, they're not just backstory. They're credentials.
Exactly. They prove you understand the real price of just staying alive in this world. If a character is clean, they haven't really lived on Tantalon. The scars are their passport.
Okay, speaking of the GSU, let's map this thing out. It's not just one fantasy world.
Not even close. The author built this to be huge. It spans 3 different but connected eras. It starts in Fantasy Era 1.
Right.
Then it moves into Cyberpunk for Era 2, and then it goes all the way to far future science fiction in Era 3.
That jump is what gets me. How does a world of assassins in a city like Arcus turn into a sci-fi setting? Is there some big event that forces that leap?
Well, it suggests that the cosmic horrors they uncover in the fantasy era are just so bad.
That survival itself forces them to change.
Right, or maybe it's just that the same moral fights, the same killers versus villains idea just keeps playing out, but with different technology. Swords become plasma rifles.
And Starfall or Shadowworn is our way into that first era on the world of Tantalon. We meet Starfaller, this mysterious elf assassin. So what's the hook? What's the immediate conflict?
Well, the book kicks off with the Grim Shadows, that's Starfaller's group, in a pretty straightforward war with a rival criminal crew called the Silver Veils.
So a gang war.
Basically, it's dirty, it's professional, it's violent. But this is the GSU, so, it doesn't stay that simple for long.
Of course not.
As they're fighting for control of their city, Arcus, they sort of accidentally uncover this much older, much scarier threat bubbling up from beneath, the return of a forgotten cosmic horror cult.
And that's the shift. He goes from what? Managing turf wars to facing some sanity-shattering doom.
That's grimdark. But like you said, his biggest fight is always internal. What's driving this guy?
And what's he trying to hide?
At his core, it's this deep, almost overwhelming lust for power and control. He grew up in the Grim Shadows, which is this super strict life-or-death organization that owns its members. He is desperate to not be a pawn anymore.
Which creates this amazing paradox for him. He fights his way up to become the leader of the Grim Shadows.
The highest position of control.
Exactly. But he resents the very thing that defined him. He feels more trapped than ever, even at the top, but his loyalty is so deep he'd still die for them.
And that contradiction, that's what fuels all his bad decisions. Because he can't escape the organization, he looks for power somewhere else.
And that leads him to the deal with the devil, the Eye of Shadows. This is not just some magic item.
Oh no, it's a sentient, predatory thing, and it only has one need: hunger. The Eye doesn't care about Starfaller's politics or his freedom, it just needs to be fed.
What does that hunger demand? Is it souls? Violence?
The sources suggest it's an escalating need for power, probably life force, maybe just pure darkness itself. The point is, Starfaller's ambition becomes this awful resource management problem.
So the more power he gets.
The more the Eye demands. It makes his freedom more and more expensive. So the harder he tries to escape the chains of the Grim Shadows, the heavier the chains of the Eye of Shadows become.
He trades one kind of servitude for another. That is a perfect GSU consequence.
It links his entire rise to his moral decay.
Let's dig into the lore of his race, the Shadowborn. It's right there in the title. Who are these people?
The Shadowborn are basically a nightmare race of wild elves. They're from the Shadow Realms, which is described as this parallel plane of eternal night and gloom.
So they're almost elemental creatures of darkness. What do they look like?
Very stark, cold black skin, silver glowing eyes. And critically, Starfaller looks exactly like that, and he has their abilities.
And their abilities are terrifying.
Yeah. They can form shadow weapons right out of their hands. And they can shatter step, just pop into and out of any dark area instantly. Good luck trying to track one.
Now, in the GSU, there are other evil elves, right? Like the Dark Elves or Tyrantborn. What's different?
That's the key. The Tyrantborn are mortal. Evil, sure, but they're just another race from the world of Tantalon. The Shadowborn are outsiders, dimensional travelers, and they come with a curse.
And that curse is the whole mystery around Starfaller.
It is. A Shadowborn can't really exist in the mortal world for long. They feel this growing pain, this, dimensional rejection. They're always being pulled back to the Shadow Realms, usually to their death.
But Starfaller, who looks like one,
Yeah.
who has the powers of one, he doesn't feel that pull.
Never. He's here without that cosmic price tag, and that's why people whisper about him. He's a genuine Shadowborn who somehow beat the curse. He's an anomaly, which makes him even more dangerous.
The author's warning is pretty blunt.
Yeah. If you ever meet a Shadowborn hunter, run. That tells you everything you need to know.
So shifting over to the craft, to the writing itself, Rucker knew it was tricky to get true grim dark, right? Without just, being all about cheap thrills and gore.
Right, and his solution for that is realism, but specifically realism in motivation. His whole formula is cause and effect. Every single action, no matter how brutal, has to come from a strong, believable reason.
So if a character burns down a town, you have to understand exactly why.
Exactly what they hope to gain from it or what they're afraid of losing. That focus on motivation is what keeps it all grounded, even when it's totally fantastical.
He's aiming for a 50-50 split between horror and fantasy.
And he gets that through being really immersive. He's a very visual person. He talks about getting lyrical inspiration from rappers like Vinnie Paz and the Wu-Tang Clan.
That's so interesting.
Because of how they use this sharp language to paint a really clear picture. He thinks in visuals like it's happening right in front of him.
Which explains his goal for the reader. He says, I want the reader to smell the blood, to hear the screams, to enjoy the victory. He uses what he calls direct grounded language.
He hates flowery language because that kind of abstract language, it gets in the way of the visceral feeling he wants you to have. The horror has to land with a physical weight.
And that style is perfect for the living world structure he built for the GSU. This isn't just a series of books.
Not at all. The world is designed to feel like it exists, whether you're reading about it or not. Each book is just one piece of a much bigger story.
All right, so we get these narrative gaps that get filled in somewhere else. He gives the perfect example in Starfaller, the old leader of the Grim Shadows, Melrich.
Old knife.
Right, he's just dead. It happens off stage.
In that book, yeah. He's just gone. But if you want to know what actually happened to him, you have to read the short story collection, Archist and Shadows. It forces you to see how big and connected this world is.
It really hammers home that Starfaller is just one thread in this huge dark tapestry. And we should mention, there are other main characters in this era.
Oh, yeah, Starfaller is the entry point, but there's Titan Star X, the Dwarf Lord, and other characters like Kane, Sarblade, and Blade's Fool. They all have their own stories going on at the same time.
And because of that core rule of consequence in the GSU, none of them get plot armor.
That's the big risk. The author's clear that these protagonists, who are all killers, they're going to cross paths. Sometimes as allies, sometimes not. And if the story demands a character dies, even a main one, they're gone. It keeps the stakes real.
So let's bring it back to the organization, the Grim Shadows. They are the embodiment of that aesthetic darkness.
Totally. They are not heroes, they kill on command, and they are professionals. They'll burn down your town for coin or for power. The morality is purely transactional.
Pay them and they're your best friend.
Don't pay them, and you hook around and find out. That's his phrase.
Their only saving grace, the only reason you can stomach rooting for them is that they're always up against things that are far worse than they are morally speaking.
They're the lesser of two evils fighting against pure cosmic villainy. It's the ultimate gray area.
Finally, we have to talk about Rucker's own relationship with this whole creative process because it sounds almost supernatural.
It's wild. He
Yeah.
says the experience is weird even to me, that he sometimes feels almost possessed. He says he struggles just to write down the ideas because they come so fast.
He feels less like a creator and more like a conduit.
Yes, he feels like he's tapping into something that has already been made and done, like the world is already there and he's just taking notes.
He describes it as peeking into a library of written books and only being able to pull out a few at a time. He doesn't even know if this library is in his own head or, somewhere else.
It really speaks to the sheer detail of the world. It's so complex that even he perceives it as a truth he's uncovering, not a story he's making up.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought for you to think about. If Rucker feels he's only transcribing this dark, detailed world, this library of grim, dark fantasy, the question is this just an incredibly well-developed part of his own subconscious? Or is this aesthetic darkness manifesting from a place that exists entirely outside of him? What does it truly mean when a Grammy Award-winning creator feels they're just a tool in the process of bringing a world defined by unavoidable scars to life? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Grim Shadows universe.